What's going on, guys? Fun with Knives back again, and I think it's time for a comparison video. Now, both of the knives you're looking at are made by Spyderco, and both are widely considered to be some of the best everyday carry folding knives on the market. Now, I do own both of these knives, but the purpose of this video is to kind of help me decide which one I like more, because I haven't quite decided. And to help all the buyers out there that might want to purchase one or both of these knives. Now, these are very comparable in a lot of things, so I wanted to do an unscientific test. As you can see here, I wrote down some values or some categories that I think are comparable between these two models. And rather than doing the specifications of each and boring you guys with the stats, I'll just tell you a little bit about my experience with it and which one I prefer. So, a lot of these categories are going to be fairly subjective, what I prefer, but some are objective, that are undoubtedly better than the other. So, without further ado, let's get into looking at these two knives, the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, the Spyderco Manix 2 Lightweight. Now, I do not have a normal standard Manix 2 in G10. This is the lightweight version, but price and everything will be taken into consideration because the Manix 2 and the Paramilitary 2 are a little bit more comparable than the lightweight. But on to the first category, which is ergonomics. Now, both of these knives are pretty ergonomic in hand. They are user-friendly when it comes to cutting. The PM2 has a canoe-shaped handle. It's actually fairly large, and my hand fits it pretty nice. But the Manix 2, and I think a lot of YouTubers and knife fans out there will agree with me, is much more ergonomic. Something about this knife just feels like perfect in your hand for a variety of cutting tasks. It just fits it like a glove. So ergonomics immediately is going to go to the Manix 2 Lightweight. Now, blade steel between these two is not a competition. PM2 comes in S30V, while the Manix 2 comes in CTS BD1. S30V is a powdered metallurgy steel that will hold an edge much longer and performs a lot better. So blade steel immediately is going to go to the PM2 for performance. But the CTS BD1 steel of the Manix 2 is no slouch. It's actually one of my favorite budget steels. It takes an edge and holds it for a decent amount of time, but is easy to sharpen and easy to maintain. It's actually fairly corrosion resistant, so ease of sharpening is going to go to the Manix 2. Now, the price on these models is also something that's not entirely comparable because this one costs far less. And I think I speak for everybody here when I say we want to spend less on our knives and get more for our dollar. Now, this PM2 is not necessarily the standard version because of the DLC black-coated blade, but same story here for my Manix 2. Now, the Manix 2 is going to come in around $80, $90, while this PM2 is going to come around $120 or $130. So price is also going to the Manix 2. Now, the clip is a point of subjective thought here. The PM2 clip is a standard Spyderco hourglass clip, but it is four-way repositionable. Be positioned on any point of the knife, regardless of your left-handed like to carry tip up or tip down, while the Manix 2 is simply reversible. Carries tip up no matter what. Now, I know most of us carry our knives tip up. For those of you that like tip down, the PM2 wins. But I like the wire clip better. So, for sake of fairness, I'm going to give each knife a point here. I think this is a tie because of the Paramilitary 2's configurability based on what you like. Now, the Manix 2 does carry a little bit deeper in the pocket. You can see right about there, while the PM2 is right about here. Also something to note, but I think each knife deserves a point here. Variations available is the next category, and this one's, again, a tie. Because these knives are so popular, and Spyderco realizes that, they come in a variety of different colors, steels, and sprint runs. I mean, you can get this Manix 2 in different shades of blue, different steels, and the PM2 is just, I mean, one of the most popular folding knives of all time. So you can kind of get exactly what you want in your Spyderco, whichever one you want to purchase, or both. So, variations available, again, is a tie. Next category is country of origin. Both are made in Golden, Colorado, USA, Earth. And now that is a point in my book for both knives. They're USA made, and I love to see that. Now on to blade shape. Both have a leaf-shaped blade that Spyderco is so well known for. I'll show you each one at a time. The leaf shape on the Paramilitary 2 comes down to a more acute point, but is coming from thicker blade stock. So it's going to be a little bit beefier, but also has a full flat grind, slices like a dream, and penetrates with ease. Now it's kind of the same story, the Manix 2 here, but this leaf shape is just a little bit broader coming from thinner stock, so this slices even better. But the point is not quite as acute, even though it's going to perform all those tasks you need it to very well. But aesthetically, I think the PM2 looks a little bit better, and I think it's just a little bit more functional. So I'm going to give the blade shape to the PM2. And again, this is kind of subjective for some of these things, but that's of course why you're watching my video and not just someone else's. So on to size. Now, rather than bore you guys with the specs, I can just kind of show you. The PM2 is just a hair longer, but it's a hair thinner in this dimension. In the pocket dimension, you can see Manix 2 takes up more space in this dimension, while the PM2 has kind of a more slim profile other than the large opening hole. Now, as far as thickness on both of these, are very comparable, around a ½ inch, and honestly the handle size is not all that much different. So in a lot of ways these are similar in size. You even have a very similar cutting edge, the PM2 beating it out. But I think as far as size goes, the PM2 fits my hand a little bit better. Not ergonomics wise, just size wise, and I think it's a little bit more capable as an everyday carry blade and can be pushed into a variety of roles. So the PM2 is going to get the size. Carryability, I'm taking into account the pocket clip, how it carries, how it feels in the pocket, and how much space it really takes up if you're going to throw other things in that pocket. And the PM2 wins for one reason, and that's this dimension here. You can see that the Manix 2 sticks out a little bit. It's wider in the pocket, and it's more noticeable even though it's more lightweight. So the PM2 for carryability, at least for me, wins out. Weight is an easy choice here. The Manix 2 lightweight is of course lighter. It's lighter by about an ounce. This is around 3 ounces. This is around 4 ounces. So weight, Manix 2 lightweight. Lock is something else very subjective. That was a bad deployment on my part. Let's try that again. The Manix 2 has the ball bearing lock, where a ball bearing is suspended in a polymer cage and is activated by the spring into the tang of the blade. So it's a very strong lock. You can hear that positive sound when it locks up, and actually acts as a detent. But the PM2 has the compression lock. The compression lock is kind of an inverted liner lock that compresses a piece of that liner between the stop pin and the blade tang, making it also very strong. So I don't think strength is an issue here. That's something's very comparable. They are around the same as far as strength and the lock capacity, but as far as ease of use, the PM2 is going to win out. The Manix 2 can be operated without putting your hands in front of the blade at all. I mean, it's very safe to use this knife because you don't have to wait for that blade to fall. You kind of control it. It's kind of like a Benchmade axis lock, but the PM2 is just a little bit more user-friendly, especially how free-falling that blade is. So PM2 is going to win the lock as well, at least for me. Opening and closing kind of goes hand in hand with this. Now, both are Spyderco round hole openers that can be used or opened with the lock and closed with the lock, just like this. Well, you can do that with the PM2. It's a little bit harder, but you can do the middle finger flick. You can slow roll it with your thumb. You can flick it out with your thumb. And of course, you can do the Spidey drop, which I don't really use that often. But each knife can be opened in the exact same way and closed nearly in the exact same way. So each knife gets a point here. Lanyard hole, again on these knives, is insanely comparable. I think they might be exactly the same size. Both are huge. They're going to accommodate, the Manix 2 is just a little bit bigger. Both are huge. You're going to accommodate any paracord or whatever you want to throw through there. But the PM2 is going to ride a little bit higher, which I like, but I don't use lanyards enough to make that a real big issue. So both knives will get a point here as well. Grip is something surprising. This is not ergonomics. This is just grippiness of the knife, texturing, and having that security in hand if this knife were to be wet, either of these. Now, the handle material on this Manix 2 is FRCP, fiberglass reinforced copolymer, which is a fancy term for a high-quality plastic. And that plastic has been textured with kind of a volcano grip, where it's bidirectional. If you push this way with your thumb, you're going to get caught, which is nice. If you push this way, you're going to get caught. So it's grippy on the sides of the scales for sure. And actually there's ribbing all over the knife. You see here, it's almost like jimping, but it's for the meat of your hand rather than your thumb or your fingers. And there's jimping up here on this, the thumb ramp and on the index finger choil. So overall, this is a pretty grippy knife. But to me, the PM2 with its G10 handles is more grippy. There's something about this texture that wants to hold me in a little bit better than that plastic. Something about this knife I just feel very locked in and very secure about, but both are insanely grippy, but I'm going to give the slight edge to the PM2. Fit and finish to me is an easy choice, mainly because of this. Let me show you guys this. The PM2 is dead center, while the Manix 2 has always been off to the side. Now, the fit and finish on the Manix 2 is actually really nice. The coating was nice, all the engraving, the branding, the overall construction. There's no, lockup issues. There's nothing like that. But the PM2 just excels in this category because everything is just a little bit better. It's got flush mounted screws all over it. It's just nice and flat, nice and smooth where it's supposed to be, grippy where it's not supposed to be smooth, and the action and everything is just a little bit better. So as far as fit and finish wise, the PM2 is going to win, and construction kind of goes hand in hand with that, also wins. I do not like the fact that you cannot take the Manix 2 apart. It is pinned construction. You can see here, you can adjust the pivot, but the rest of the knife, the rest of the body of the knife is pinned together and is not user serviceable, while the PM2 has standard Torx screws. So overall, I think we can kind of see who won this competition here. Let's count them up. Manix 2 had a total of 9 points, and the PM2 had a total of 13 points. Now this is surprising to me because I've owned my Manix 2 for much longer. I've had more experience with it, and you'd think I'd have a greater emotional connection with it just because I've spent more time with it. It's been a lot of time in my pocket, a lot more than the PM2. But I mean, the PM2's seen its fair share. You can see the wear on that clip just from me carrying it around. But the PM2 wins, and I think for one overall purpose. It can be pushed into more roles. It's user serviceable, and it's just more versatile. It really is. To me, the Manix 2 is a near perfect everyday carry knife. Other than it being a little bit wide in the pocket, I mean, you can get this knife in CPM S110V, and it'll serve you well, probably for the rest of your life, but you just can't really service it. You can't take the knife apart, which is kind of an issue. But the PM2 to me is going to excel at outdoor tasks, at, bushcraft tasks, or, everyday carry tasks, whatever it is. The PM2 is kind of the answer, and that's why I think it is so popular, and that's why I think it wins. I've been finding in the past weeks that I've reached for my PM2 more than my Manix 2. Now, if this Manix 2 were in G10, like the standard version with S30V, maybe that'd be a different story. Who knows? But I like the PM2 just a little bit better. So hopefully this was a little bit informative to you. Again, I know it was unscientific and a little bit subjective, but hopefully it showed you some of the features that you might be looking for and really compared and contrasted those. So thanks for watching as always, and remember, have fun with your knives.